Hey there, Mark Brown. This is not something I saw coming. This was, wait, what? Whoa. Yeah, talk about a risk. My fall and my speech was a risk, but that ain't nothing compared to what Taylor Candella did on the big stage in 2025 at the World Championship of Public Speaking.
I cannot wait to have this conversation. And trust me, friends, it's going to be a doozy.
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time, stage time, stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
Hey there, Mark Brown. Hey, Mark, you might not even know this, but back in the day when I was starting my newsletter, my blog, I had a close friend that you and I know, I won't mention names, but she was a marketing expert. And I told her I was going to start a God blog, and I was going to put in my regular newsletter just a headline, and if people want to read it, and I was told, don't do it. Well, I prayed about it and I decided, you know what? I have to do it. Now, that is a little thing. Okay. I made a decision, and yeah, I might have lost some followers, but maybe I got stronger with others. I don't know. But this is like next level. Oh my goodness. We see so many people, Mark, who come to us who want to be the 2020 next year world champion of public speaking. This young man, oh my goodness. Mark Brown, your initial thoughts?
All I can say is this. For those who are lacking context, the World Championship is a big deal in speaking, and speakers can tell whatever they want to talk about. And our guest today, Taylor Candella, took what I think was one of the biggest risks ever, but he acted on his conviction. Let's meet Taylor Candella. Welcome, Taylor.
Right. Taylor, welcome.
Hey, thank you both for having me. It's an honor.
You earned this, young man. You earned this.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It goes back to intention, and a lot of people want to win because they want the trophy. And I met you on the street in Philly, you and your child and your wife, and had a little conversation. And it was just, we only had one more day. I watched you win in the semifinals and going on to the big dance, and I said, hey, I have to leave the convention on Friday, but if you want me to look at your speech. So you and I worked in the bookstore. It's the only place we could find in the hotel, in the bookstore. And I have to tell you, when you started telling me your speech, exactly my reaction, word for word, sound for sound. I was just, and more importantly, what I'd love you to share is like the story behind why, because you had this opportunity the year before. But anyway, welcome. Sorry, I just want to dive into it, Mark.
No, that's great.
Well, real quickly, I know that people here were saying, wait, what risk did he take? So let's just jump in. What was the big risk you took, Taylor? And then we'll go into the backstory behind it. In one sentence, what was the big risk you took?
I shared my faith and belief in Christ on the biggest stage of public speaking, and not common or not a popular topic to talk about. You know, they say politics or religion. Keep that stuff off the stage. And so I chose to not listen to that advice, and here I am.
Wow. For context, people understand the Toastmasters International Speech Contest is just that. It is an international speech contest, and we have attendees literally from all over the world with all belief systems. We have Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, atheists, Jews, agnostics, you name it, we have it. And in the past, other individuals have mentioned the word God and gotten pushback. but you took it to the nth degree and then some exponentially. So I'm curious to know, with all that background, why would you still choose to do that?
It's a great question. It starts a year ago when I got the email from Toastmasters International that I was one of 28 semifinalists going to Anaheim. It was my first time ever making it to the semifinals, and I was so excited. And at that moment, I said, "You know what, God? If I make it to the finals, I'll talk about you. I'll share my faith. I'll give you the glory." And so the summer went by, and I procrastinated, and I had several negative voices, most of which were my own, which I shared about in my speech, but others, external voices as well, saying, "Hey, you probably shouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that if I were you." And so I listened to those voices, and so I didn't make a final speech that was about my faith. It had nothing to do with my faith or God. And I kind of joke that I'll never know this side of heaven if that's the reason I didn't make it to the finals. If God was like, "Hey, I thought we had a deal," you know? But nonetheless, I didn't make it to the finals. And I remember sitting in that chair where two other names were chosen. I just felt almost guilty. Like I broke a promise that I made to God. And I said, "God, if you ever give me one more opportunity, I will not break that promise again. I will follow through on that."
Mhm.
And so for a year, I've been waiting for the moment of contest season and, club, area, division, district, and then getting that email again. "Congratulations, you're one of 28 semifinalists headed to Philadelphia." My heart was pounding because I knew I was one step closer to being able to come through on that promise I made to God. And so I started crafting a speech. I struggled to come up with something for a while, actually, but that's the reason. I made a promise that I had broken, and I was given a second chance to fulfill that promise, and I knew I was going to come through on that promise. And so that's the reason behind why I chose to give the message that I gave at the finals.
Mark, everyone deserves a
A
second.
second chance. That's right. 30-year-old message. I realize that. But Taylor, take us through the process that goes in your mind. Okay, God, I'm not going to let you down. That is your conviction. And you said there were several negative voices because you know that Toastmasters is a platform we avoid politics, sex, and religion.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that means we don't want to proselytize to tell people you must believe what I believe, you must accept this or that.
Sure. Yep.
I'm curious to know what was happening in the world around you when people heard you say, "I am going to do this." What was the response within your Toastmasters community and beyond?
Are you talking about this year or the year prior?
This year, when you said,
This
"I'm going to
year.
do it now, I'm
Yeah.
all in."
Did people know you were going to do it?
So I had my neighborhood, half of my neighborhood over one night so that I could practice, and then the other half of my neighborhood over the following week. And so I gave that message only twice before I ran into you, Darren. I only gave it twice, and it was to basically my whole neighborhood, and some of which believe what I believe, and many of which do not. And I knew that, and I thought it would be a good test market to give my speech, get some feedback, none of which are in Toastmasters, but it's I just wanted to give that speech to people I love and care about and get their feedback and see what they thought. And so, Mark, to answer your question, the feedback was overall positive, even from people who don't believe what I believe. And so that was encouraging. And I kind of shared what I was trying to accomplish. I wasn't trying to, like you said, push my beliefs on somebody else. I just wanted to share what my beliefs were and what God has done in my life, and to thank Him for everything He's given me. And so everyone was very receptive, neighborhood wise, and so I went to Philadelphia, having practiced that speech 2 times in my family room. As far as live audiences go, I gave it to myself in the mirror probably dozens of times, but yeah, that was really the only feedback I got because of the year prior. I mean, and the negative voices that came. I intentionally chose to kind of keep this under wraps because I didn't want negativity trying to seep in. I wanted to stiff arm that as much as I could. And so I had the support from my wife, Meredith, and some friends, and I was going to say that's really all I needed. That I didn't even need that. I knew I was going to do this if I made it to the finals, but to have some support obviously was very helpful.
And again, for everyone listening, he wasn't evangelizing. He was telling his story of his faith. So even if you look at last year, the world champion, she talked about her God. Louisa, she talked about her God. She wasn't like saying, hey, you should, but we need to be able to be transparent. And now this definitely breaks the line of don't talk about sex, religion, and politics. Definitely broke that line. But I was so proud of you. Like when I was sitting there, I was like, wow. I actually felt bad. I'm like, I should be doing more of this. And so I was truly inspired. And I also had the thing in my head where you only had one more day. So I couldn't give you major changes because I didn't want to make it worse. So I was like, ooh. So here's some easy tweaks. But let's go back to how did you decide what to say? So you committed to the promise. Well, how did you decide what part of your story to tell?
It's a great question. I think the whole court scene analogy came slowly, but over time. And I started building out these different characters and thinking like, who could that be in real life? And to skip ahead a little bit, the bow tie thing where I changed bow ties, each character had a different color bow tie. I didn't even have that when I did my 2 dry runs with my neighborhood. I thought of that the week before we flew to Philadelphia. I looked at my wife. I said, do you think you could sew some magnets into some bow ties? And we Amazoned 5 different colored bow ties and some tiny magnets. And she went to work. And it was just a cool visual because I wanted people to know, man, I got a lot of characters up here on the stage. I wanted them to know that when a different character was speaking. And so I don't know how that came to me, but I thought, wow, what it would be so cool if I could just exchange different bow ties and that would symbolize a different character. And I think that came across pretty clearly and sharply. But to answer your question about how I decided on what to share, that trip in Africa, Cameroon, Africa, is what changed my life, is what really, I grew up going to church occasionally, not a ton, but I always thought I just want to be a good moral person. And so I believed in God, but it wasn't until that trip in Africa where I would say my relationship with God started. And it wasn't that it wasn't about just being religious. It wasn't about religion. It was about relationship with Jesus. And so that's when things clicked for me in my walk with the Lord. And so that's what I wanted to at least discuss. Obviously, in 7.5 minutes, you can only say so much. But that trip in Africa changed my life forever. I wouldn't be the man that I am today without that trip. And so I wanted to at least kind of touch on how that trip changed me and my perspective and what I thought about God originally. You know, I said in my speech, I used to view God as this bully with a magnifying glass. And he's just mad at people and burning up the ants, like me and my friends did when we were little kids. And so that shift in perspective and in my mindset about who God is, like I said, changed my life.
A couple of thoughts. One, you deliberately did not rehearse in front of your normal Toastmasters audience, and you chose to do that intentionally. It's a trick question, but are you saying then that you advise people who are watching or listening to be selective in how you test and how you practice? Is that what you're suggesting here? Because you chose not to talk to that audience.
That's a great question. I think there is some wisdom in choosing who you practice a speech in front of. And so I just, based on the prior year and some feedback I received, I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna keep this close to the vest this year because I know what I want to do. I have a strong conviction about the speech I want to give, and even if people that I looked up to and respected were to say, "Hey, you really shouldn't do this," that wasn't going to change my attitude or my decision like it had the year prior. And so I just said, you know what? I'm just gonna run with this and fly under the radar a little bit and take the opportunity to share what I believe with some neighbors who maybe didn't know already. So it was a good opportunity from that perspective as well, just to open up to my neighborhood and let them in a little bit more about who Taylor Candella is. But other than that, yeah, I just decided, all right, we're going to Philadelphia. If we make it to the finals, this is what I'm going to say.
I'm chuckling, Taylor, because I don't think Darren knows this, but prior to my contest final 30 years ago, as of this recording in 1995, on the contest day, when I gave that speech, prior to that, there were only 7 people who had heard my final speech.
Wow.
My main coach, David Brooks, 1990 world champion, 2 performance coaches, Robert and Randy Candella in New York City, and my family were the only ones who ever saw that speech before I went on stage to give it. Matter of fact, one of my district members came to me and said, "Mark, I hope you tightened up that speech. You had to get some work done." I said, "Just wait till after I'm done." He came back, said, "I began listening. I don't remember anything you said. And about 2 minutes in, I said, you know what? It's a different speech. Enjoy it." So I can appreciate what you did there. I also, I want everyone to catch this. If you can, Taylor, is there a video of your speech available yet, or you don't know if it's available yet?
I have not received, I know Toastmasters International said it would probably be late September, maybe early October. So I have not received a video or recording of either of my speeches, the semifinals or the final speech. So I'm hoping to get those soon.
Yeah. Well, as you know, contestants post their videos on YouTube in post haste. But I would invite anyone who gets a chance, when it's available, to watch the video. He mentioned the different characters and the bow ties. I saw the speech once, but I can still see the green bow tie. The white bow tie was the advocate. The black bow tie was the accuser. The red bow tie was the judge. Am I right?
Mostly accurate, yes.
Okay, mostly accurate. I think one was green. But
so the green was the judge. That's how I opened up as the judge. So he was green.
Green was the judge. Okay. And there's also an accuser, right?
Yeah, and then so black was when I came out of character. That was me. That was Taylor Candella. And so I kind of, after that court scene had ended, then I stepped out of that, and the black bow tie was just me. Yeah.
And the white was the advocate. But having those characters, those bow ties, and I was impressed with how quickly and easily it stuck there. I said, very well done. But it was clear because you also incorporated, and Darren's the stage person. We all know he's the king of stageology, but also the movement of each character. Over there was the one in the back who said Aldo before him. Over there was the judge, the accuser. You use your stage well also. So the visual of the bow tie reinforced anchoring of the location. And again, I invite anyone who can get the video later on to watch and see how Taylor incorporated the character and the location of the character to cement in the audience's mind what's happening, who is who, and invite you all to think about how you use your stage as well. So kudos to you, Taylor, for using the visual and the stage combined to cement in our minds what was happening, who was the character, and it made it that much more vivid and clear to me as a member of the audience as well.
Thank you very much. I will stop you there and say I got to give some kudos to Darren, because that is one of the things that he helped me with in that hour that we met Friday night or whatever it was different stage. What a mistake that I was making was as the different characters were speaking, I was trying to make eye contact with the audience. Obviously eye contact is very important when giving a speech. And Darren said, characters don't make eye contact with the audience. Characters talk to the other characters. And that was a really big moment for me, because I was so worried about where I'm at, each character is going to be, and then trying to look at the audience. And so that was really helpful and kind of simplified it for me, where I already knew where each character was going to be, but then the judge was looking at the prosecutor, and the jury foreman was looking at the judge. And so that was really helpful, and definitely wanted to make sure I gave Darren some credit for that.
Well, I guess correctly. He's the king of stageology, and I've got to
That's
work
right.
with him for the last 25 years, so I know how good he is at that. Thanks, Darren. Good job, buddy.
And how are you feeling game day? Saturday morning, you know you're about to do this. You know your intention is to fulfill a promise.
Mhm.
And there's also a good chance that you might not win because of that. Like, I just admire that so much. So tell us about your thoughts and feelings on Saturday morning.
Yeah, so I ran cross country and track at Ohio State, and so I ran at a very high level. And as a runner, I would always get nervous, like not sick to my stomach nervous, but right on the cusp before every race. And I'd wake up race day, and I'd be like, oh man, just I know it's race day. I told my wife Meredith, I woke up Saturday, I was like, oh man, it feels like race day. I just kind of had those race day feelings. But similarly, back when I was a runner, or back when I was a collegiate runner, I still try to run. But when I was running at Ohio State, as nervous as I got, as soon as that starting gun went off, man, those nerves just went away. They evaporated immediately, and you get in the zone. And so similarly, on Saturday, man, I was very nervous, and leading up, and I was first. Not only was I first, but I was going to be talking about a topic that you're not supposed to talk about, and so there was a lot going on in my head and in my heart. But as soon as those first words came out of my mouth, just like when the starting gun went off in my races, those nerves just gone, evaporated, and I was able to get in the zone and deliver and fulfill that promise that I'd been holding on to for a year.
A little deeper on that, do you have race day rituals regarding if you eat, what you eat, when you eat, how much you eat? It's afternoon, not morning. What is that like inside Taylor Candella's head on race day or game day or contest day?
Sure. So I was a little superstitious back then, so I'd have the same, half a bagel with cream cheese or peanut butter on it in the morning. We'd be at the hotel, and so we'd go down, have a light breakfast. We'd do a little bit of we called it a shakeout run, where we'd maybe go jog a mile and a half, 2 miles, just to wake up the legs, and then relax and take the bus over to the course, kind of walk the course, and then mentally prepare. And so similarly, I woke up because had some knots in my stomach. I didn't have much of an appetite, so I ate a half a bagel with cream cheese.
You go.
And I similarly to kind of waking up the legs, I ran through my speech once or twice. I didn't want to overdo it, and then I relaxed and hung out with our 8-month-old baby Wells and Meredith in my hotel room. And then, they kind of gave me some peace and quiet in the room, and kind of went down to the lobby or walk around just so that I kind of could, again, like I said, get in the zone. And then I went to the convention room and was ready to go.
Now, question, was there a tech check that morning or the day before or early in the afternoon? When did they do technical check for the microphones and all that?
Yeah, great question. The rehearsal was that morning, actually. So there's a 2-hour rehearsal and then about a 2-hour break, and then you had to be right back. So that was a large part of the day as well, where you're just kind of going through mic checks and where people are going to be, things like that.
And one question there, did you try to find the ballroom before, like the night before, or did you go early and check out the space to kind of own the room? Because some speakers, they'll go in at 1 a.m. if they can, just to feel the room. Did you do anything like that?
Not to that extent. I did that before the semifinals. I was able to get into the room where my semifinal was going to be, and was able to give my speech a few times, and I videoed myself, and so that was helpful. But the convention room was so big, and I felt like locked down much better. And so no, I did not. Friday night, I was not in there walking around, but I did practice in one of the larger hotel rooms as well.
And one more question regarding the semifinals. When you were rehearsing early on the stage, were you the only contestant in the room at the time when you went to feel the room out?
Yeah, I was the only
there as well, trying to say, I'm going to go over there early and feel the room out in the semifinals.
So I went. So Wednesday night, my wife and my son were asleep, and I said, I'm going to go down and find a room. And I went to the room where my semifinal was going to be, and there were 4 doors. The first 3 were locked. The fourth one, you know, try again. It was not locked. So I helped myself and went in and went on to the stage. And so, yeah, I was the only person
Okay.
in that room where the semifinal was about to be held. And yeah, it was probably 11 o'clock, midnight, before I went back to my room.
Nice.
Last question on that point. Did you plan to do that at some point? I'm going to go down by myself and feel the room. Was that was that intentional?
Yes, it was intentional. And it was funny because a couple times some hotel staff, came in and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "Oh, no, that's okay. I'm just practicing for a speech." And they're like, "Okay, I'm just here to refill the water or pick up this." I said, "That's okay. Go ahead." So it was funny. I had some interruptions, but while I was rehearsing, which I didn't know this at the time, a cell phone went off during my semifinal speech. So it was kind of a good practice to have some distractions go on while I was rehearsing.
All right, I'm going to back up a day. Mark,
Okay.
we have lengthy discussions about this. You're in the room, you're pulling numbers for order.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you pulled number 1
For the finals.
Yeah.
for the final?
Okay. Because I was 7, I was last for the semifinals. So I went from last in the semifinals and then first.
God says the
the
last
finals.
shall be first.
Yes, that's right. So, if I'm honest, I was not pumped to draw the ace, and in fact, there wasn't even a chance for me. They went by alphabetical order of first name, so I was the 8th person to draw. So it was the only card left. So
Default.
it's not like
Oh,
I
wow.
could have picked another number. It was the ace. I think the ace of spades was the
Oh,
only
boy.
card in the envelope left. So when I saw that, I was like, oh boy. And I know everyone has different opinions on speaking order, and I know you can win from any number, but my initial thought was like, whew, because I'm thinking I already have an uphill battle from what I'm talking about, and so then I thought, all right, going first is just going to make that incline a little bit steeper. Was kind of my initial thought.
And I'm curious, why do you think being first would have made it more difficult?
Well, again, there's different philosophies, but some people think there's a recency bias where if you're towards the end, maybe judges will remember your speech more, or if you're in the beginning, maybe your speech is forgotten about somewhat, or they don't remember how much of an impact it made on them, 7 speeches ago. And so there was a little bit of that train of thought that went into my mind of, man, what I say, is that gonna stick with them after they've heard an hour's worth of speeches? Are they going to remember the first speaker? So that was kind of my initial thought, which again, that might be totally false or incorrect, but that's kind of what I thought about.
Well, having done that, how would you advise someone who draws
Hmm.
slot number 1 and they go, "Oh my gosh, they're going to forget who I am"? And quite
Hmm.
frankly, I doubt anyone forgot your speech, Taylor, because of your content. But how would you advise that individual who goes, "Speaker number 1, ha, ha," and they start to freak out?
Yeah, so one of my mentors, Tracy Baker, he said when I took a picture of the ace and I sent it to him, he goes, "Good," with a bunch of exclamation points. I said, "What do you mean good?" He said, "Set the tone. You get to set the tone."
Nice.
And so after I kind of felt sorry for myself for 30 seconds, I regrouped and I was like, yeah, that's right. I'm going to set the tone. And so I think that would be my message is if you're first, you get to set the tone and you bring the energy and your passion and you make a mark on those judges, so they can't forget you, would be what I would say to that.
Well, Taylor, when you were a wee lad, my first final was
Yeah.
1994, 31
Okay.
years ago.
All right.
And I was speaker number 1 also by default. There were
Okay.
2 cards left. We had 9 speakers and there were 2 cards left, a 9 and the 1. And the man beside me drew the 9. I drew the 1.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't draw the 1. It was default.
Yeah, you were
I know
given the 1.
exactly how you feel. So I wish I had your advice 31 years ago, but that's okay, Darren.
Yeah, here's what I love about your speech. And for everyone, understand this. His speech in the contest was his message. the fact that he had the faith over and above that mattered more to Taylor than the winning.
Correct.
And so, in my opinion, the message of the speech was the message, because the fact that you would do that when we're told not to do that, like, that's risk and that's faith. I mean, I was just, whoa.
And
Thank you.
I want to piggyback on that, Darren, because I talked to Taylor about us afterwards briefly about the conviction. You and I had a brief talk, Taylor, about weighing what it could really cost you.
Sure.
Take us through your process of thinking, because your title is called Conviction, and Darren's right. You spoke about conviction. From your conviction, you embodied your message, but you also saw the risk of, I want the trophy my second time, so I want to get there.
Sure.
What's that mental process, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, it's a mental ping pong or mental tug of war for sure. And I kept thinking, and a year ago going to Anaheim, I kept thinking, well, if I make it to the finals, like, I have a 1 in 8 chance of becoming the world champion of public speaking. And I thought in my mind, like, that opens doors. That opens doors to be a keynote speaker, which is something I aspire to do. And so I think the risk in 2024, it outweighed the reward. And so that's why I kind of broke that promise and didn't come through with it, because I thought, well, man, 1 in 8 chance, that's a puncher's chance right there. And so I could get some doors open for me. And so then when I didn't make the finals, and I kind of, basically said, God, that's my bad. I apologize. And it won't happen again.
Nice.
And so that is when I decided it's worth the risk. And so sure. I'm a competitive guy. I wanted to win. Absolutely. I wanted I wanted to hoist the trophy up. I wanted, doors to be opened to become a keynote speaker. But man, my word is worth more than that. And my promise to God is worth more than a trophy and then, since the speech, people have said, well, how do you know God won't open a bunch of doors for you? Because you came through on that promise. And I did not think about that, honestly, until a couple people said that. And so, yeah, who knows? Praying for that.
There's a reason you're on the podcast.
That's right, man. That's right.
Just saying, this is a
So
door.
here's a door that I'm getting to walk through that,
Because
otherwise
of
probably
your
wouldn't have.
message,
Sure.
because it was worth the risk. That's why we haven't talked to any of the top 3. Like, we may, I'm not saying we won't.
Yeah.
He told you we wanted to talk to you, like that.
Your first prize. And I got to ask this question now. What was the reward?
The reward was just knowing that I came through on a promise that I made. And I again, like I said, your word, it means a lot. And at least to me, your word means a lot. And so afterwards, after the results, I started crying. Some people saw that I was pretty visibly upset. And when I got home from Philadelphia, someone who's very successful in the speech contest reached out to me and kind of talked to me about my emotions and said, hey, I know where you've been, that heartbreak. But he said, I just want to encourage you, like, you had a lot of people waiting to speak to you after that. And as best you can, try to keep those emotions in check so that people don't not want to talk to you because they see how upset you are. And I said, dude, thank you for that perspective. I really appreciate that. I said, there's just one thing I do want to clarify. I said, I wasn't crying because I lost. I was crying because I was so happy to have had the opportunity and come through on a promise that I'd made over a year ago. And when I stepped out and hugged my wife, who'd been on this journey the whole time, my semifinal speech was about her and the delivery of our son. like she'd just been on this journey. And when I saw her and embraced her, I wept. I wept, and it probably did look like I was crying because I didn't win. And same thing when I saw one of my mentors, Tracy Baker. He gave me a big bear hug. He's been on the journey the whole time with me, and I just wept. And so I said, those weren't tears of sorrow. Those were tears because, man, I got to do it. I got that second chance that I was praying for, and I delivered. And I just became overwhelmed with emotion after that. So I don't even remember the question, Mark, but
That's okay.
I don't know if that answered you or not. But
But you did, because I asked what was the reward, because you said
the reward. Okay. Yes.
You said not 94. The year before, 24, Mark, you did this thing 30 years ago. Back up, buddy. In 24, you said the risk outweighed the reward. But 1 year later, you were convinced, based upon your conviction,
Right.
that the reward would outweigh the risk. And friends, I hope you're hearing this. We tend to think of the reward, the ultimate reward of a speech contest is a first place trophy. I physically have a trophy in my mantelpiece in my I think it's downstairs, gathering dust. My wife will dust it off every so often. It's a nice piece of lucite. But for me, my reward over the last 30 years is not winning a contest or placing second in a contest. It's being able to have an impact on people's lives through what I do. And I know of individuals who have not won the first place trophy who are doing just that. And here we are a month out, Taylor, and through our podcast, already you are reaching other people with your message. So rewards transcend just a trophy. It's nice to win first place. I didn't win my first year, but I got my first keynote 2 months later. Go figure, right? So I'm saying the reward, I would submit to you, Taylor, you have not yet begun to see all the rewards from the work you've done by following your conviction and keeping your promise. Darren.
Well, and I want to go to after the speech. You said people lined up to talk to you.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear some of the comments, and I want to hold the two that we talked about before the podcast.
Okay.
Hold those for a second.
Okay.
Because those are my favorite. But tell us about some of the other comments that you got with this line of people who lined up for a guy who didn't place. Like,
Right.
that says a lot. Go ahead.
First, I want to get the emotional reaction to seeing that line with no trophy. I want to know how you felt about that.
Yeah, I was blown away. Again, I hugged my wife, I hugged Tracy, and then I turn around and there's a line, and I was looking for the top three. I was like, wait, they're all on stage. Like, they're in the wrong place. What are they in line for? The top three are up there.
Love it.
and then people just started approaching me, and I was blown away that, and it kind of started, the emotions kind of kept rolling through there, because I was like, wow, like, this is what I want. I want to have an impact. I want to help people and make a difference. And so to see a line for somebody who may have gotten eighth place was really cool. And so, Darren, to answer your question, some of the comments were just, hey, Taylor, I loved your speech. I loved the courage it took for you to do that. Hey, Taylor, thanks for standing up for your faith. We need more people who are willing to do so. Hey, Taylor, thank you for being brave and not listening to those negative voices.
Nice.
I've listened to negative voices a lot, and I hope this helps me kind of tune out the negativity, and just a great messages. And it was really encouraging to see and hear that in the immediate aftermath of the contest.
And I hope you realized you now have a faith-based keynote.
Yeah.
Talk about that, Taylor.
This story is part of that keynote. So in that keynote, you got your faith story, but now you've got this as like the culmination. So make no mistake, that is one of your messages. You may have others that you want to do in keynotes, but the worth the risk, or the risk of anyway, conviction.
That's it.
My conviction, your conviction. Wouldn't you like to have conviction too? Anyway, so Taylor, let's go to the two biggies, because I loved hearing these. So you had some other comments as well.
Yeah. So later in the day, the contest was over, but I was walking through the halls of the hotel, and a gentleman was walking the opposite direction, and he stopped me, or he approached me, and so I stopped because it looked like he wanted to say something.
Mhm.
And he said, "Hey, my name's I forget his name, but he said, I don't believe what you believe, but I think your speech was the most impactful speech of the 8 finalists."
Wow.
And I was like, "Really?" And so for someone who disagrees with me from a spiritual perspective to take time out of his day to kind of stop me, we were walking opposite directions, and to kind of go out of his way to say, to give me a compliment and say that my speech was more impactful in his mind than the other 7 finalists. Man, that just blew me away, because up to that point, I think all of the people who came up to me shared my beliefs, and
Right.
were Christians and talked about their faith in God. And so to have somebody who, I think that was the opening line, "Hey, I don't agree with you spiritually. I don't believe what you believe, but dot dot dot," like,
Wow.
man, that was just such a cool moment. And I remember that comment very vividly. And similarly, later that evening, during, or not during, but outside of the president's dinner, a female did basically the same thing. We were walking opposite directions, and she said, "Wait, you you're the guy with the bow ties." And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, first of all, that was magical. The changing of the bow ties, that was so smooth and sharp. And she said, "I don't agree with you about God, but the way you articulated your message was fantastic." And so those two comments of people who very openly disagreed with me, but were courteous enough to stop me and pay me a compliment, man, that just, it meant a lot.
Well, I must comment on it very quickly, Taylor. What you just showed and taught us is that when we stand by our convictions, there are ways to share what you believe in a non-threatening way.
Mm,
Because as Darren said earlier, you weren't trying to proselytize or evangelize. You were saying, here, hey, here's my story, what I went through. And
yeah.
when you think about it, almost all of us as keynote speakers talk about our experiences in some way of
Mm,
transformation, in leadership, in communication, lessons that we've learned. You did the same thing. You never said, Mark, you must do this. You said,
mhm,
here's where I am, what I learned, and I'm so thankful. So
Hmm.
there is a way to handle difficult subjects in a
mhm.
tasteful, meaningful, effective way, which was proven to you by two people on the same day. That I
Yeah.
don't agree with you, but the way you did it, I got to respect what you did. And it was
Mhm.
done masterfully. So we can master our craft and find ways to deliver our messages in a non-threatening manner and still be respected for it and accepted for it.
Mm.
Powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Taylor, if someone wants to connect with you or reach out to you, where would they find Taylor Candella?
So I'm not a big social media guy, which I think that needs to change a little bit. But I do have an Instagram, and it's just at Taylor Candella, my first name, last name. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So those would probably be the two that I would recommend, that I respond to the most. And yeah, would love to hear from people and hear their thoughts. And I try to do my best to respond to everybody in a timely manner. But yeah, at Taylor Candela on Instagram, and then LinkedIn as well.
Nice. And as Mark puts together the notes there, what would your advice be to someone who is thinking about or is competing or wants to compete or
Mm.
maybe is, forgive me, but lusting after the trophy? What would your advice be to them if they sat down and had coffee with you and said, Taylor, I don't know how you made it there, and they had the courage to talk about that, but help me out. What do I do?
They just want to compete, or they want to compete and talk about their faith?
Well, they want to compete and win. Like,
Okay, they want to compete and win. Well, I haven't done that quite yet, but
yeah, but you made it to the big stage. That's
Right.
right.
Out of 35,000 people, man, you're one of 8. That's a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
deal. Okay.
There's 999 people in the audience who wish they were you.
That's
Sure.
right.
Yeah. So somebody who's just considering, throwing their name in the hat and in the contest, and maybe needs a nudge or a push from someone. That's what you're referring to?
Sure.
Sure. Well, I'm big in like getting out of your comfort zone, and so that's one thing that I would say was just try it one time. If you hate it, you hate it. You don't have to do it again, but maybe push yourself, give it a try. And I wasn't necessarily, I didn't know I would love it. Public speaking was never a quote unquote fear of mine, which I know that's the number one fear, but I didn't know that I would love the contest until I did it. And so I would encourage them to just try it once and see what happens. And who knows, you might be on the world stage someday, but you would have never known unless you at least gave it a shot. So you got to at least try it one time. And yeah, maybe it's not for you, but at least you know for sure that it's not for you, and you didn't just keep thinking about what if or I wish I would have. So that would probably be my message to them.
And my last question would be, and I know it's been about a month, so you've had some time to reflect. How has competing this year changed you or transformed you?
So my whole family watched live the finals. I had a lot of old college buddies watch live, and neighbors, and I think the response, the text messages that I got from my inner circle or even some of my outer circle friends and family about just how proud they were of me. And again, I hadn't been that bold really in front of any of them, probably maybe a handful, but for people that I love and respect, and to kind of earn more of their respect, because of my conviction and doing what I promised God I would do, that was, I don't know, that was very empowering for me, and made me, I guess, proud of myself, not in a prideful way, but just really thankful that I took the opportunity to stand up for what I believe in, and hopefully that there's a ripple effect in my family, in my friends, and in people that I've never met, but hopefully will someday, and hopefully in people that I will never meet. That somehow that message can reach people and help bring people closer to the Lord, and help people just in a more of a positive light.
Taylor, you good and faithful servant.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you very much.
planted seeds that you may never see grow, and
Right.
then others
Yeah.
you will see. It's you did your job. Now it's up to him,
right.
Mark.
Amen.
Taylor, you may have noticed my head went down a few times throughout our conversation. I've been taking some notes, and you dropped some nuggets of wisdom I want to pass on to those who are watching and listening. You upfront told us, don't pay attention to negative voices. And the cool thing is, you get a chance to listen to have a large audience hear you rehearse, but you selected the ones that you knew would not put you in the wrong mindset. So don't listen to negative voices. You said, select your test audience, commit to your promise, and take a risk. Get ready for race day with your own rituals. And when you can, feel the contest room in advance. If you're the first speaker, just set the tone and forget the rest. You may think a risk will outweigh your reward, but think differently. Let the reward outweigh the risk. I love that piece. Deliver your message respectfully, especially if it's controversial, and push yourself to compete. And whatever you do, speak with conviction. That's your wisdom for me and our audience. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Taylor, thanks for walking through the door that was open for you. And
Yes, amen.
thanks for being willing to share your conviction and your backstory. Really proud of you. Let us know if we can help you in some way. If you're listening to this, go to Taylor Candella, find him on LinkedIn or Instagram, Candella. Thanks for being here. God bless. And if you're listening to this, we'll see you next week.
Hey there, this is Darren LaCroix. Thanks for checking out this podcast episode on YouTube. If you want all of them, not every one is on YouTube, check out your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. Keep being a sponge so you can be unforgettable.
Check out StagetimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.